Welcome to Puck Talk CS. I'm your host, Matthew Mugno, with my big brother, Mike Mugno. He's a neuroscience
Ayo.
research student, by the way. This guy has no background in puck outside of puck now. And Steve, my man, Steve-O, he's been doing great too. He's at Columbia. You know that? Studying at Columbia. Boys, first thing I want to start, JT Miller is back. Okay? So let's dive right in. Steve-O,
Hold on. Before
okay.
you dive in, you're acting like I've never played hockey before. Relax over there, all right? You're like he's got no puck, no, besides puck knowledge.
No,
Like,
no, no. I mean, okay, yeah, that's fair. I mean, you're not
yeah,
like a career, like
no.
I'm a hockey analytics guy, or
All right, okay,
I mean, to
okay,
be fair, but Steve-O's been on the pod for ages with me, so
yeah, okay. Anyways, I'm sorry. Let's get into JT
I
Miller.
don't know.
all
I
right.
think
Yeah,
I'd trust. I think I would trust Mike over like any other Rangers bot in Rangers Twitterland. But I mean, how about this?
Who's
Mike is
bot?
Let's talk some puck. Let's do it.
there. We go. There it is, Steve-O. All right, boys. So JT Miller. By the way, first of all, I just want to plug RPI real quick. Phenomenal weekend. Their alumni network,
Huge.
insane. One of the best in college hockey. I was chatting it up with Spittin' Chicklets, Matt Murley. He was great. Um, Darren Pupa, legendary goaltender, was on that team. No Oatsy though. Was hoping Adam Oates would be there, but it was great, man. Hanging at the hotel bar. They got the dub on the big night, 4,000 plus in the arena. College hockey. We're gonna have James Murray on soon from Everything College Hockey, so gotta plug that real quick. Now to JT Miller. All right, boys. So he scores 2 goals in Boston. I mean, this guy, Sam Rosen said on the broadcast tonight, we're recording right after the Vegas game. He
Literally right
said that
after the game just ended.
game just ended. 3 a.m. he came in to Boston to play. Like, and this is how he's playing. This guy does everything. Chris Nealon said it once, and it just sticks with me forever. You went on the boards, you went in front of the net, you went on the back check. He does all those things. All right, so let's start with the trade itself. I was on air when it broke. You guys were my baseboard on everything. So tell me your opinions.
Well, I was using a little boy's room when it broke, which was like, I honestly think that's the first time that's ever happened to me. So I was just sitting there like, whoa, what the? By the way, also gotta rep. Going back to RPI real quick, the big red freak out, dude. You gotta love college hockey. Stuff like that's
Gotta
just
love it.
amazing. And also the freak out with the exclamation point on their sweaters, just that's golden. Um, but no, I mean, I at first was shocked. I actually didn't think that they were going to make this trade happen. And honestly, I thought that what we gave up for Miller I thought it was a fair deal. You know, the Canucks are getting a guy that in Chytil that um still needs a little bit of work to start putting the puck in the net, but he's not like super raw. I think they can really make a push, and as long as he stays healthy, he'll be a big part of that team. And of course, Mancini's a great prospect. He wouldn't really have had much room to make it with the Rangers, but he for sure will with Vancouver. So, what do you think, Steve-O?
I think right off the bat, I had had the same reaction as you, Mike. And we say this on the pod all the time. It's not really fair to grade a trade right after it happens. No one for sure is going to know how this is going to play out. Miller coming back to New York. There's just so many factors, and I don't think this addresses, the Rangers' core issue. But I love it. I think the Rangers clearly won this trade. Now, yes, Chytil, I think we all could shed a tear, But with that being said, never forget Chytil all alone in the playoffs when he had
Oh,
that wraparound goal
all timer.
against Tampa in the Eastern Conference Final 22. But I love this move. I think this is a great move all around. I think the Rangers won this. I think if we're giving out grades, I see a lot of, grades going out on social media and Twitter. Some people think that the Canucks won this. But I think, I think it's very obvious the Rangers won this. They got the best player by far in the trade. And listen, you don't have to look too far to see his impact in 2 games. In 2 games, not even that. It's not like he's fully rested. With him getting to Boston late. Having the 2 goals in Boston, 2 assists tonight against Vegas. Not even that, but I think I was more impressed with his physicality. He was throwing bodies left and right. He was
Hmm.
battling he was battling for the puck and the boards. I was also impressed on the second power play that we had. He was out there. He double shifted on that, and I think it's good. That's going to be big moving forward. Down the line. So I loved it. I'll flip it back to you, Matt. But it's an A+ move in my book for the Rangers.
All right, this is my big take. This is what we've been talking about for a long time, right? The player that plays this brand and can also, score goals and chip in when it matters most. He's on power play one. He created the goal, the Lafreniere goal, by driving to the net and taking that defender away. That's why Lafreniere was wide open. 2 goals in Boston in a game that no one else really showed. He arrived at 3 a.m. That's adrenaline, right? But outside of that, I love his details in his game. It was funny. I talked to Colby Cohn about this, like what makes a detailed hockey player. And he does all the things. He checks all those boxes. On top of it, former 100-point scorer. There was a lot going on in Vancouver. The noise, a Canadian city, it just took over. And you could tell that he already has the juices again in New York. And granted, the last time he was in New York, he was the guy that wasn't getting the ice time. He was the rookie that was trying to break in, similar to Kakko's situation, right? So I love the move. I understand 31 years old, but this is the big picture that I talked about with Mike actually over the weekend. There's concern about the end of the contract. And I think that I actually think this is like the stupidest thing I've ever said. But the New York Rangers in 5 years are going to make a big trade or sign a big free agent. Like, I just don't think that when we talk about the letter, that I do see a lot of the benefits of the letter and a rebuild and how they advance that rebuild. But I also think that all this concern that a 31-year-old player that moved his note, like nullified his no trade to come to New York, he's now going to be here for long term. And if his impact starts to diminish, the New York Rangers will likely bring in another asset. So I know it doesn't solve your problems, but we've seen, especially in this regime, if Drew's still around then, probably not, that they'll cut bait if it's necessary. They did it with Gabbert. They traded for Brassard, John Moore, and Derek Dorsett. Nobody thought they would have the impact they did. So, yeah, at the end of the day, I think on the Miller side, I love it. The term, is it concerning down the road? Maybe. But I don't think it's a concern for the club overall. Like, I don't think they're going to not find their way out of it. And I also think the tough thing with Chytil is just like the question marks. I'm glad, though, they did not surrender any of the rumored packages, boys. I mean, we saw Ottman, Perreault, Loff, and Schneider all named, as well as Keandre Miller, which, granted, I know that tonight was a good night for him, but, it would have been harder to see some of those guys go.
Yeah, but why was it a good night for Keandre tonight? Was because you heard Joe say it on the broadcast. Was it Joe? Maybe it was Brian Boyle. J.T. Miller was screaming on him on the bench to shoot the puck. Like, dude, just shoot the puck. And what did Keandre do tonight? He shot the puck and he scored basically the game-winning goal.
And that was vintage Keandre. Like, we've seen him score like that time and time again.
And Miller even made Zibanejad go back to vintage Zibanejad, which is something that we've been waiting for all season. And he finally had a good game. And you know what, Chags? I like what you said about oh my gosh, I just lost my train of thought. Oh my gosh, I completely went out of my head.
I did throw a lot out there.
Yeah, you know what? Steve-O, you take over. Let me gather my thoughts.
That's okay. You're rehashing out the game-winning Miller goal. I love that. I'll say this on the Canucks and your point, Matt. I do agree with you. But I also don't think the Canucks were. Let's be honest, the Canucks were in a very brutal position, and I think they were obviously gonna take a below market return for Miller or Pedersen.
That's what I was gonna say, Steve.
Because this situation was unfixable, and they had to do something. Everybody in the league knew
it was the same as like Trubisic. We saw it from our end this year.
Exactly. And you see when these things fizzle out and get so bad, there's no solution. You got to move out. We saw with Truba, you now see with Miller. And I think the only thing that hurts you, or not hurts you, but you worry about is Chytil. Chytil is the X factor in this trade. What is he, 24, 25? He still hasn't reached the prime of his career, and we've seen flashes of him, whether it was in 22, 23, even a little spurts here and there this year. He could really make an impact. But like you say, Matt, all the time it's the injuries, especially the concussions. And if there's one thing that ends, an NHL career, it's concussions. That's just something, when you get them, you constantly get them. You see it in the NFL too, and I think that, these injuries have kind of derailed Chytil's career a little bit. I think Mancini, I'm not really worried about. When we re-signed Borgen, I think the need to keep Mancini here in New York, dropped very much. You basically have, 3 right-hand shots on the blue line, that would be ahead of Mancini. So I'm not really worried about him. I wasn't really crazy about him in the first place, and I think, again, all around win-win. Win for the Rangers. I can't speak for the Canucks right now, but it seems like the Rangers are in a better position than the Canucks right now.
You know what? I'm going to jump right in. I'm going to jump in.
Yeah, jump in.
Yeah, because Steve-O, you brought up exactly what I was going to say was the Canucks, like, they were in a bad position here, and I think it was really, really smart, even though it was frustrating to the point where I was like, Drury, just make the blockbuster trade. Even though I originally said I don't know if I want Miller. He waited the Canucks out, and it was basically a war of attrition, and eventually they were going to have to give up Miller. And I think the fact that Drury kind of played the waiting game and was like, look, no one else is really in on Miller. There were a few other teams that checked in, but we were the only serious team that did. I think that very much helped the Rangers in the long run. And I thought it was masterful that Drury did that, even though all of Rangerstown was like, why is he waiting? Hey, I guess he outsmarted all of us.
Well, first of all, shout out Rick Dallowall was the man that was covering this for like 4 seasons out in Vancouver. This poor man probably hasn't slept in like 3 months. So I want to shout him out. But on the contrary, I also love that first, thank God it's not Elijah Pettersson, because
I was just
he would
thinking
have
that.
been. I just can't imagine if the Rangers are trying to build an identity. And Kaplan said this for a long time, Emily Kaplan, like, this is what they're trying to build towards, and they want that player that can mix it up and do both. We saw Will Cooley do it tonight, right? He's another one of those players with that brand and style. So yeah, and I think with Chytil, it again, like you said, Steve-O, sad to see him go, right? He's young, but we're also seeing, like, with Buchnevich, there is also a level that these players reach where you kind of know what they're going to be. And Chytil, to me, is like probably a 70-point scorer. Lord save us if he's 80 plus, right? But at the same token, in the same token, J.T. Miller is an established 90 to 100-point scorer the last few seasons when he was at his peak and successful. And I think he's now surrounded by even more talent. He has Artemi Panarin, the shell of Mika Zibanejad, who he dragged 3 points out of tonight. So I also think he's surrounded by a little bit more in this top 6 than he was in Vancouver.
Listen, if he's going to be the catalyst to get us into the playoffs, who knows? I mean, really, he's been what this team has been missing. And it's funny because I feel like last pod we were like, I don't know. But I really think that deep down, a lot of Ranger fans were like, we don't really want to give up what the Canucks were asking more than we don't want JT Miller. And there were some Ranger fans who were concerned about his character. It's funny because I feel like these last 2 games, Joe Micheletti has been really highlighting the fact that Miller is like a captain. He was an assistant in Vancouver. I remember there were talks the first time around when he was on the Rangers that he was in the talks of being an assistant. I can't remember. Was he an assistant captain?
I think he was.
He was, right? Okay, yeah. Because I mean, he's got those qualities, and the fact that he was able to draw that out of Mika, to draw that out of Keandre tonight, that is going to be huge going forward. And I don't think a lot of Ranger fans were had that in their mind when these trade talks were going down. And
I
I
didn't
really
either.
and I really like that Joe McLeady's been highlighting that, because the Rangers didn't really care. Not that they didn't care, but they weren't worried about what his point production was going to be. They were worried about him being a leader, because we never had good leadership besides maybe Trocheck this year. And having a voice like that is a big plus. You look at past Ranger teams, Mark Messier type players that aren't afraid to get up in players' grills and say, "Why are you not shooting the puck? Dude, why are you letting all these guys walk around you?" You need a guy like that in the locker room. So I'm glad that we made it.
Accountability.
Yep,
Accountability in the room.
exactly.
Accountability, which
Exactly.
I like. I like that, Mike. Also, not to mention on the point side, the last time the Rangers had 200 point scores, 91-92. There's still potential for that. Maybe not this year, but next year, as long as Panarin and Miller are still around. So keep an eye on that too.
It's infectious too. The way Miller plays, I
hmm
think it rubbed off on the whole team. Not even Mika. Mika's a prime example. But the Kreider. Kreider had a pop in his step. This was like prime Kreider. Back in the days today. Getting in front of the net. How many times are we going to say that here on the pod? That game time goal. That was all Kreider there in front of the net. Mika was there. Great shift by Mika and Miller. All around everybody. But that play was disrupted because Kreider was in front of the net, screening Hill and getting Hill left to right. By the way, I'll say this, not to jump around, but I'm not big on Vegas. Especially in the 2 games that
Oh,
we played against them, and seeing them get thrown around a little bit here and there. Yes, they're a good team. But I
You're
don't.
rage baiting me. You know it too.
Listen, I don't know, man. They're a great team, but when it comes down to it, Colorado's a way better team in my mind. I,
Okay, you had me there. Vegas is still my pick out of the West, but I also thought for all the talk about them, especially tonight, I thought Colorado had more game. They have the game breakers. Like they have that speed and firepower, but I also thought what was scary was no Eichel, yeah, but McCarr and McKinnon are diff level. And at the
oh
time,
yeah.
Ranton, and when we played them a few weeks back, like McKinnon would just fly into the zone. I know Eichel scored that laser in the second period, and I know they were absolutely caving us in the second period tonight. But I thought that it was more menacing when like McKinnon was flying down the wing than like Mark Stone, right? And that's where I think there is a difference. But I'm still picking Vegas.
we'll see when we get there, Mike. Before we come back to earth here with this team, what do you think about that?
I'm gonna say what I said last pod when I was stuck between you two. I see both sides. I don't I don't know.
Switzerland.
What'd you say?
I said Switzerland.
Yeah, a little Switzerland right there. I'm not really too worried about the West. I'm worried about the Rangers coming out of the East.
Oh, okay. Bring us back down. Bring us back down. All
Yeah.
right, let's talk because I think this is the thing. I feel like it's Tale of Two Cities. I X'd this tonight. Um, Zeeting. I posted that. I feel like there's a lot of times where they have this juice and it's like they were last year, right? Just dominant and they have energy and they have this weird energy. They have Rempe out there and then they have JT who they pulled in. He's a stud. They have Panarin, right? All of a sudden, all these guys are all over the ice and it's like these circling monsters in the water in the offensive zone. And then there's these longer stretches, right? Like longer hope and pray defense where it's just Vegas is firing away at Quick tonight. And that's where I'm still concerned. Like against Boston, it felt like the same thing. They came out flying, and then once they crumbled, that was it. JT was like the only guy balling out there.
Mhm.
So I think where obviously everyone's concern is like we know what the true team is this year, but can they climb out of that? What do you guys think about how the team finally responded to the resiliency being down a goal tonight?
I think this one was a big one. Obviously, I don't know. This team is so bipolar, man. Like 1 second you go out. Yesterday we're going, it's cooked, we're done, and tonight we're so bad. And
Well, you were for sure.
yeah, well,
Steve was in pessimist mode for a while.
yesterday was a big one. If there's any battle that we need to win, it was yesterday against Boston. And I think what was disappointing for me, and we'll I'll touch on Boston really quickly before we move in a more positive light. Was that Boston has the worst power play in the league, and we have the, was it second or third best penalty kill in the league, and we gave up 2 goals to the worst power play in the league, and that's disappointing. That you cannot have that, especially in big games. And yesterday, that kind of felt like a playoff game, playoff atmosphere, a team that you are going to have to beat. We're going to get another shot at them, which again we have to win. But that was a team you had to beat, and you couldn't pull it off. And not only that, the first 2 periods, it looked like JT was the only one. Even at all the things in his last 24 hours, he was the only one that was out there and getting quality shots and really battling, and the whole team was dry. And to mention your point, Matt, the defense, the defense is still an issue. And you mentioned Rempe really quick. Rempe, that's why Rempe doesn't play a lot in the third periods of close games. When he gave up that cross-ice pass that led to the 2-on-0 that luckily Quick was able to get in there. But again, the defense is still an issue. I think Miller might help it a little bit because he's so good with puck movement. You saw it on that goal tonight. When the Rangers have puck movement, oh my goodness, that one goal. But I mean, the defense is still an issue.
You know what I like though? I think JT has quieted things down a little bit at center. I noticed though, on a multitude of occasions tonight, he made short passes, steady passes that I felt, Zibanejad was not playing up to snuff at 1C. They move him to the wing. And this is a move that Toronto's done before John Tavares when Tavares wasn't at his best or coming off of an injury. And I think it may pay off in dividends in that respect too. So I love his 2-way game. I think that's a great point, Steve. Like, I really do think he's in the same way Borgen has, like, kept it a little bit simpler, and that's helped the team out a lot coming out of their own end.
And listen, Steve-O, you brought up, like the defense. We still have a lot of time before the trade deadline. Of course, 4 Nations is coming up, and there's a roster freeze there. But, Chives had talked about how Dan Rosen was saying. Say that again?
Is there a roster freeze?
I assumed so, because I was just about to say, you had mentioned Dan Rosen had been a huge champion of right before 4 Nations was going to be kind of like a quasi trade deadline. I took that as there was a roster freeze. I don't know that specifically. But I guess what I'm saying is, my point is, after 4 Nations, we still have plenty of time until the trade deadline. And if the Rangers are in a good position are you both looking it up right now?
Yeah.
You're both trying to find it. No, it's funny. If the Rangers are in a good position to make the playoffs and maybe make a real big push into the playoffs, I think absolutely you have plenty of cap space to play with. Go and get a defenseman. And especially someone we've been talking about, someone with control, so that, over the summer, if you don't like them, you can dump them, because of course everyone loves control. Or, maybe like a UFA, maybe a vet UFA. If we're worried about voices in the locker room, go get a UFA who's been there before or has made deep runs. And, I don't really know off the top of my head who's available, but you can fix the defense, Steve-O, is my point. We have time.
Yeah, but I also think I contest that, and I know Steve will too, because I feel like it's been a problem all year. And obviously, this is not what I hope the roster is going to look like post TDL, but you have the money, but how many players are really out there that you can they can come in and acclimate? Like, Miller is special. He is a top 15 player in the league the last 3 years in multiple categories. And he has the other side of the game that's like the intangibles that is very rare in a star player. I don't know how many defensemen are out there that you bring in and bring that where it's this certified, they're going to be steady.
Well, I mean, you never know. When we brought in Justin Braun, I don't think many Ranger fans thought he was going to be. Yeah, I don't think many Ranger fans thought he was going to be.
A 3D. Adam Fox needs a partner.
Well, okay, all right. I understand what you're saying.
I think that's where. No, but I agree. Like you can get one big guy, but I just don't know if you can get three.
Okay, I see your point.
Right.
But like Vakanainen, I don't want to see him in the playoffs.
Vakanainen needs to be the
Get
first
there.
one out of town. Yeah, I've had enough of
Steve doesn't like
Vakanainen.
him.
I said this before we hopped on. How about a hot take? Vakanainen is the worst New York Rangers I've watched in the last 5 years.
Oh, that is
Easily.
a scorching take. Dryden Hunt played for 60 games. Elias Anderson played for 60 games one season, or 50.
Yeah, I know, but it was way more easier for Dryden Hunt to go unnoticed and not do anything than it is for
On a line with,
Vakanainen is.
all right, we're not
Especially
even
when
gonna
this New York Rangers
Yeah,
team.
well, you know what? I'm gonna bag Steve-O on this because Dryden Hunt's problem was that he was doing nothing. Vakanainen makes a lot of bonehead mistakes.
He does.
And that kind of pisses me off.
He stopped a 2-on-0 tonight.
That was one time though.
Okay, cool. He also takes bad penalties.
right.
He also doesn't keep the puck in the
Listen,
zone. I don't know.
I'm not
a
gonna
fan.
get into specifics, but I think that's a hot take.
How about this? Let me back it up. I don't think I'm going to persuade you on this one, but hear me out. Vakanainen does not add anything, offensively, defensively. He's also not helping Braden Schneider, which Braden Schneider, we can all agree there's talent there. You look at what Will Borgen has done, and look, Keandre Miller has come out and he's making an impact and he's scoring here and he's scoring there and he's playing, good defense, throwing J.T. Miller, and now, Mika's playing a little bit better. Braden Schneider has done absolutely nothing recently, and it's like
he
he's
scored
playing,
against the Flyers.
Yeah, that too, but he got lucky when he came in there. But how about this? Not nothing, but Braden Schneider could be doing much, much more.
The ceiling is higher.
Exactly.
I agree.
And I
agreed, Steve.
There's no
Like
chemistry
in the
between
playoffs with Money in the Bank.
Exactly, and there's no chemistry between Schneider and Vakanainen. Let's be honest, So I think, a trade could help, but also I think your solution is right there in front of you. And again, we said this on the last episode. Zach Jones, I think, his pairing with Schneider, I think, they had a little something cooking, and Vakanainen and Schneider is just, I don't know. It's like Schneider's playing with a robot.
Sometimes, Steve-O, the things you say cracks me the hell up. Just like, yeah, that too.
All right. By the way, boys, I just got the Rangers post game, the newsletter thing. New York improved to 6-2-1 in its last 9 home games. Now, this is big because in that losing stretch and right after that, coming into January, they had a losing record at home. Big hockey mantra. Actually, sports mantra I now live by. If you are the home team, you cannot lose in front of the people that buy the tickets. You cannot. And they had a losing record. I think it's big to have a little bit of that home ice advantage, especially in the situation they're in right now in the standings.
Yeah, there was a point in the middle of December when MSG was having that little ad of like, the Garden is calling you. Ranger fans, come to the Garden. I was like, Sam, no, I do not want to go to the Garden. But no, you're right, Chives. Like, just from not only from a motivational standpoint, but also from, if you're not winning those home games, it's basic math. You're not going to make the playoffs if you're not winning at home. And of course, there have been good Ranger teams in the past that have had much better records on the road than they have at home, but they still had good home records. Like you said, basic mantra in sports: win at home. Obviously win on the road too if you can, but it's better to have a better home record than a better road record.
Yeah, and the Rangers are in the pitfall now where they need to win home and on the road. They need to win every game they play, And unfortunately, this one was a big one tonight. A, because you lost a big one yesterday, and B, everybody else lost tonight. So nobody else was gaining points. I think somebody else there's still one more game in session, but everybody else lost. And this was a big one because nobody else gained, and you gained 2 points, and the Rangers, on top of everything else, still have more games to play. I think we have 3 more games to play again, compared to teams like Boston and Detroit. We still have the most games to play. I'm not sure off the top of my head.
I gotta tell you, Steve, I despise games in hand. They have 2 in hand of Boston and 1 of Columbus. Tampa's played one more.
It's big.
Why do you despise it, Chaz?
Okay,
Just curious.
I despise it because I feel like it's the ultimate Russian roulette. Like, you got 2 freebie games. I don't know if I've ever seen a team get into the playoffs because they had games in hand. I swear. And listen, there's probably
That's a good
stats on
point.
this. I'm probably 100% wrong or maybe a little bit wrong, but I don't know why, man. I know you want to control as much as you can. You want your team to control as much as they can control. But man, when a club has like 3 games in hand, that like the Carolina Hurricanes for like a generation would be like, we have one more game in hand than everyone. If we win, we're in, and they lose every time.
It's true.
I think the games in hands are so important, especially for this New York
You know,
Rangers team.
also, you and I not very good at maths, right, Steve-O? We were never good at math. But like
That's
the
true.
games in hand I see are like the games you're playing now are games in hand, right? Like they are also like kind of it's the way you view it. They're
That's
kind of
true.
like the way you perceive it. They're kind of like the extra games. You dropped a bad one in Boston and you won a great one tonight against Vegas. So I don't know. I feel like games in hand is a tough one. I always pancake with it.
And also the other thing, and I want to jump in here because I'm looking at the standings right now. Why in the sweet hell are the Islanders still ahead of us? We've played the same
Why
amount
the
of
hell
games
did they jump in front of us? What the hell?
because they have 7 overtime losses. They have 7 overtime
There you
losses.
The
go.
loser point
Losers
league.
point, man.
Loser point league. That is asinine.
I'm gonna get it
Columbus too.
tatted.
Columbus
If
has
they make
lost
the
7
playoffs
games in
right under
rotation.
my eyes. Loser point league.
Oh my god! Don't do that.
No,
Mom will
no
kill
bets
you.
here. No butts, no nuts, no coconuts. No, but Mike, that's a great point. It is a loser point league, and the shame is now when you win a game, you don't get 3 points, right? You just get the 2. So
Right.
now we're on the flip side of that. I feel like the Rangers have won games now, but last week I didn't feel like the Rangers had the best week though, right? It started on Sunday. They lost that game on the turnover to Colorado. We talked about that, the Carolina game, and then you go in Boston and lose. Like I know you can't say like, oh, these are the games I want to win and want to lose, but it's hard to win when it's like win loss win loss. It's hard to jump back in. You need like the Islanders went on a 7 game run and they're still like out of the playoffs. So I think the Rangers are in a better spot in terms of kind of the way they can uptrend with Miller, but I also think it's like I mean, I'm waiting for that. Like the Rangers win 5 in a row, and it clicks in. Maybe I'll be waiting forever, but I think that's why it's important when when Steve-O brings up the defense. And I agree. I agree with both of you. Like I think there are aspects of the game that are being picked apart, and I think there are some that do have implications. I feel like that is one of them where I don't know. Like, can you win? Like I don't think there's like uh a very high turnaround for that.
Yeah, I
Like
agree.
the rate of it turning around at this point, like you're almost 50 games in. Hopefully you could get some help, but I don't know. I also see what Mike says. Like J.T. Miller has clearly already calmed some things down and added a lot. So if you add a few defensemen, could that really just like completely change things?
You know who we really miss? We really miss Gustafson. Gustafson was such a
Yeah.
reliable, sustainable piece that was so sharp defensively. And Matt, me and you here on the pod were the first ones to be like, Gustafson, see you later. We got Jones, baby. And I think now, I'm saying
Oh man.
that, we really miss him. And I think, I haven't heard anybody, this season, not one person in media, Twitterverse, whatever, say that we miss Gustafson because he was such a solid, sustainable, reliable piece on the defense last year, and this year, even if we had him, I know that Detroit signed him a little bit of a stretch in terms of the money side. But if we had him this year, I think that does solve a lot of problems that we're seeing now. And I was bashing Vakanainen. Let me bash somebody else. Adam Fox has been playing much better, but Ryan Lindgren has not been playing good hockey as of late. Listen, I love him. He's great, tough as balls. When you get to the playoff, he's somebody I want on my team. But I mean, this regular season is not panning out for him. Whether it's taking penalties, taking costly penalties, whether it's injuries. In the past, he's been healthy this year, but just defensively, he's been making a lot of mistakes. And he is somebody that just needs to be better. We know he can be better. We're seeing Keandre Miller kind of turn things around. Adam Fox, I think, has been very solid. I know, Matt, we've had our fair share of ripping Fox here on the pod. He's been playing much better. But Ryan,
you almost guy though.
I know. But Ryan Lindgren needs to be better if the Rangers are going to turn things around here.
Here.
You know what? Here, okay, yeah, I say yay, right, Mike? Yay.
Yay.
You know what? I think Miller has more untapped potential. I think that Lindgren's what he is, and I think the problem is what he is now is an accelerated, decomposing, right? Like we saw it happen to Girardi and Stahl. The brand they played, it quickly caught up to them, but their prime was awesome, and I think it did last a little bit longer than Lindgren's. I think Lindgren, Brooks actually talked about this recently too. Like, I think the fans are being really hard on a player that gave it his all, right? In the past, like he's been extremely serviceable. And I really don't know if anyone anticipated for Ryan Lindgren to be this impactful in the NHL from the time he was drafted to even just a few seasons ago. But I also think, like Keandre Miller, it's like he's huge. He's got the wingspan. When he starts scoring, you could see that potential. But the other thing that always concerns me about Miller is just I don't think he's an instinct defenseman, whereas I think Ryan Lindgren is an instinct defenseman. And then in turn, that concerns me more about Lindgren because it's like you're the guy that is stay at home, versus Miller, who was a star wide receiver in high school and like a forward in hockey. And then he was converted to defense at the, national development program. So, yeah, Mike, I don't know if you have much else to add about Lindy, but I do feel for him. I feel like he's getting dragged at this point.
I agree. I think he is getting dragged. Does he deserve a lot of it? Yeah. But I also think, look, you had said Lindgren is kind of what he is, and Miller has a little bit more like to develop. Remember, they're basically the same age. Miller's what, 25? Lindgren's 26.
Oh, that's a very good point.
So when you talk about room to grow, okay, so Miller has maybe one more year on Lindgren to grow. I guess my point is everyone I feel like people are having the same reaction to Miller as they did with Chytil of like, okay, when is he going to break out? When is he going to break out? When is he going to break out? But not realizing that it's probably his ceiling, unfortunately. And also, before we go into it, I do have to, because you just
Mike,
mentioned, yeah.
You killed me here live on air. I
Why?
got to
What
give
did
you
I
that.
do?
I'm waving the white flag, man. You got me good there. Whoever just listened to this, don't even listen to the last 5 minutes.
I'm sorry. I actually did not mean that. I genuinely
No,
didn't
that was a great point. No, seriously, I think humble me. That was a great point.
Okay. All right. Well, you can clip that for the Instagram reel. But no, okay.
I have an argument though.
Wait,
say what you're gonna say. Say what you're gonna say.
Our poor listeners are like, what is going on? Just real quick story, because you said most people didn't think that Ryan Lindgren was going to make the NHL. Well, back when I was a wee freshman at Penn State, is that freshman or sophomore? It was freshman year. In the Roar Zone at Pegula Ice Arena, Penn State and Minnesota had a massive war that year. We played 4 straight games to end the season, and all 4 of them were at the Peg. Were at Pegula.
We got to get to the chase here, brother.
Okay, I'm sorry. There were fights all over the place, and Andrew Sturtz and Lindgren dropped the gloves, which is a big no-no in college hockey, and they were going at it. And as they were escorting Lindgren off the ice, I ran over and I yelled over the edge, "You're never making the chow, bud!" And Ryan Lindgren cursed back at me. He proved me wrong. He made the NHL. So there's the story. That's my story with Ryan Lindgren, English.
My interactions were great with Lindy, so I can't relate, at all.
Yeah, no, he was not happy that I said that to him. Like, think about it, like a scrawny, 18-year-old me with no facial hair and short hair. Like, I was ugly. He probably thought, who is this kid,
Butterfly effect.
There you go.
All right, but my argument too, Steve-O, because we talk about this all the time. Loft, he went off in that 22 playoff, and I feel like he was the player that last year was in that same boat as Miller and Heedle, where it was like, when is he gonna. So, Steve-O, I feel like we haven't heard your voice in a little while. I got to hear me some Steve-O.
I guess the last thing I'll add on to this lingering argument or debate, something that I've noticed is that Lindgren has really struggled against teams' first lines. Especially tonight. Anytime Eichel was on there, Lindgren had a hard time. Go back, Carolina, especially against Colorado. Lindgren was couldn't keep up with McKinnon. And Natchez and co. But I don't know. It's just something to monitor here. Lindgren. He's struggling. Period. But especially against first lines, Lindgren has been struggling. So it's something that's gotta give. Although either it just magically fixes itself and guys start playing better, or I think we gotta incorporate some sort of a trade, or the easiest solution is just put Zach Jones back out there. I know Laviolette, come on, listen to Puck Talk here. Put Jones back out there. We all want it. It's very, very simple. But
I think that was the telltale sign that Trouba was starting to become an issue in the playoffs. Was like he would be out there against, if he was caught out there, against his second line or a third line, like it was fine. But it felt like, the same thing with Zibanejad too. That's a really good point, Steve. Like the telltale sign of when a player like you should start to consider things, I think, is when they're struggling against the talent that in their position in the lineup they should be able to handle, right? Like Adam Fox, I don't worry if Fox is not going to handle Vegas first line, right? Like Eichel. But when Eichel scores 2 goals and Pasta scores 3 goals and you're on the ice for, 4 of those 6, that's a concern, where it's like, this is very on the nose now. This is not like just opinions or subjective.
Yeah, it's true. It's something to monitor moving forward. Adam Fox has done a little bit of a better job. But again, Lindgren, that's something I've noticed is that, he's really been struggling against, teams' best. So
Then here's a question for you, Steve-O. Do you drop Lindgren down, so he's not playing against, the other team's best players? Chaz, you made the point, but I'll bring it back up again. At the trade deadline, do you try to get, a defenseman that could play with Adam Fox? Is it going to happen? Probably not, but maybe you try for it, And again, I have no idea who's on the market, but like I was talking about with Drury and Blockbuster trades, literally like 3 days ago, last pod, test the market, see who's out there, see what you're willing to move, see what other people are willing to, or other GMs are willing to move, and I guess that would be a good solution for your problem, Steve-O.
I don't know if you could drop Lindgren, because I kind of like how Miller and Borgen is playing, and then what are you going to do with Schneider and Vakanainen? I don't know.
Will you drop Vakanainen and put Lindgren next to Schneider?
Yeah. Let's put Vakanainen with Fox. That's a great idea. I love that idea. But I don't know. It's tough. I don't see. Mike, they're not even putting Jones back in the lineup, so I don't know if they're gonna move Lindgren around. But it's definitely something to watch. We'll say that.
You know what? I'll say this too, Mike, to your point about, I feel like we keep circling the waters on this. So to go right for the kill, I think for sure he's got a little Ari Grande in him. Like if he wants it, he gets it. I want it. I got it.
Oh my God. I can't believe you just said that.
Yeah. Yes, I did just say that. I think I think Chris Drury, we've seen it time and time. I keep saying time and time again tonight too, by the way. When he wants something, he gets it. And I think that if it's not the trade deadline, it'll be over the summer. He is revamping that defense because they need it. And he's got 23 mil. Well, now less, I guess, because of Miller, right? Minus, what is he making? 8?
I don't even know.
What's Miller even make? 9? All right, so
I don't think any of us cared.
Yeah.
We have so much cap space.
I think that's the beautiful thing. I felt like Miller being back on the ice, it feels like he just came back and like I'm excited when he's out on the ice, but you're not like learning a player's new tendencies. Like you knew exactly what you were getting, and he's been on brand for 2 games. I love that.
Yeah, he's the one player that you knew you could acquire him, you could plug him right in. Like he's gonna be an instant fix, and I think that's why he was so important for this team to acquire. And again, going back to the price, I think it was such a fair price.
8
Actually
mil, by the way.
more than a fair price.
8
8
mil is the
mil?
price. Yep.
There's a lot of people talking plenty about 8 mil. Like the cap is not going up. The reports over the weekend were that the cap in 3 years is going to be up to 100, I think 117 million. I
Yeah,
mean,
somewhere around
listen,
there.
that means the rate of so one thing though that people are overlooking is that means like Jack Eichel's up, I think next year, or the year after, he's gonna make bank on that next deal, right? Like the player contracts everything's gonna raise up. How much a max deal is, how much an 8-year deal is, how much 7-year deal is. But Miller's locked into this. So I also think that's why like the value doesn't concern me. In 5 years from now, all right, even if he falls off and he's a 60-point player, 8 mil compared to 120 mil in the cap, right? And at that point, Aaron's off the books. And guess what? You'll probably have other studs because that's the way New York works. That's not like, I don't know. I feel like once I talked to Johnny about it, I talked to Mike about it. Like, I just feel like as much as the letter was great and the rebuild and the vision was great, and I like that Drury's kind of kept that by drafting well, like Fortescue, Perot. I also think, when is there ever a time that this team doesn't bring in the talent they want? Ari Grande, Mike.
Oh God. No, but you're right. They do. It's New York. Everybody wants to play here. And honestly, as you were saying that, I was thinking, 5 years, even less, 4 years from now, you move JT Miller because he's doing absolutely nothing. I doubt that he would. But even if you move him for basically nothing because you just want to dump his contract, there are Ranger fans that are going to be out there saying, oh, so we have nothing to show for Chytil. Okay. First off, nobody expected him to be a first rounder when he went in the first round. Bob McKenzie didn't even have highlights for him when we drafted him.
It was so bad, dude.
Okay. The Canucks are probably going nowhere. Poor Chytil is on a sinking ship now. And who knows? JT Miller could get us something, even if it's a President's Trophy, even if I know it's not the Cup, but if he gets us closer, it's better than probably what Chytil would have gotten us. It's just I hate this Ranger fan, this like Rangers Twitter fan mentality of like hoarding. Stop hoarding. You gotta give up. Maybe I'm in this mood just because I cleaned out a bunch of clothes out of my apartment to start the semester, but like, stop hoarding. Get rid of clothes that you don't wear anymore. So
no, friend of the pod, Avery Zaretsky, was saying the same thing, and I mean, Mike and I, we've all here agreed and disagreed with some of it. Everyone's got their own opinions, and I feel like it's hard to really subscribe to one person. There's a lot of different, especially this year. There's been a lot of topics to agree on and disagree on, but I agree. In the sense of this is a positive move right now, and I think that even down the road, if there are negatives to it, like I personally don't look at Jacob Trouba as a disaster in New York. I thought he was great for a long time. When do players really move from a team and it's ceremonious, right? It's the guys that
Yep.
Wait. I say this. I was about to say the guys that are in the rafters. Leach got completely disrespected by the organization. Like it, Steve-O, I know you think the same thing with the Yanks, right? Like
What
how
did
many times do
Rattel?
we see players in baseball, in football? Oh, he's gone.
Oh, we lost
His,
Steve-O.
I think his laptop died. All right, Mike. So it's up to me and you. Yeah,
Oh no.
I think overall it's I even pitched that over to Steve-O too. I
Oh,
got to give
poor kid.
Steve-O a little bit of credit. He did in our private chat say that he was
They're
ready to
gonna
wrap. It's
wrap
probably
up
why.
soon.
Yeah, I
Poor
don't know. I
Steve-O.
just think that I don't even remember what I was saying.
No, we're talking about, at the end of guys' careers,
Oh
it's
yeah,
never
it's never a
ceremonious.
ceremony, man.
It's rarely even listen, as much as it pained me, I'll admit, listen, I'm a man. It takes a lot for me to cry. I was curled up in a ball holding his sweater crying when the Rangers released him. Henrik Lundqvist almost played for the Washington Capitals.
Yeah,
Like, this happens all the time. It's a
you're
business.
getting the prime of the guy's career, and Johnny
Exactly.
talks about this all the time. Like really, like that 23 to 27 range.
Mhm.
Above that, you have a good years in you if you're like a star, man. And that's also
Right.
why Miller, I feel like he has the intangibles and that the star power, like at least the production value, where it's like if he's 34 and he's still kicking, I'm not concerned. 80
Yep.
points, great. So,
And I
yeah.
doubt that he's going to fall off like Zibanejad did. And hell, he might even reignite Zibanejad.
Well,
Who knows?
good Lord. I don't know if anybody saw that one coming. Oh, he's
No.
back. He's got his
Oh my
laptop plugged in.
God, Devo's back.
No, I just got booted out. That was weird.
Oh.
I feel like I just got laid out by Will Cooley on that one.
That hit was
Actually, no,
sick,
that's
by the
not
way.
true. If I wouldn't have been able to
All right,
recover.
wait. We got to talk about one more thing before this is over. Because Will
Okay.
Cooley, I feel like we haven't talked about in a while. I am a little bit bummed that we had Heedle Mania, we had Rempe Mania. I feel like we had like this B tier Cooley Mania to start the year, and I feel like he hasn't been the same the last like 20 games.
I think it's because of him playing with Mika. But Steve-O, you've been
You
around,
shall
so I'll
not
let
be
you talk.
named.
I 100% agree with you.
Um,
He, we knew that, it's weird. Ever since the Rangers started winning, he kind of fizzled out. And even when the Rangers weren't winning, he was the only one that was scoring every night, making an impact. He looked like J.T. Miller times 7 out there during that 4-15 stretch. But now, he's still being physical. He's still making plays. He had a couple good, takeaways in the game against Vegas tonight. But if I couldn't agree with you boys more on that point. I mentioned it, a couple weeks ago that Cooley was a guy that kind of fizzled out, and you want to see a little bit more. Maybe it's time to move him around, the lineup to try and get him going. I still think, especially with JT Miller coming to town, you're going to see a lot of moving and switching around the lineups, especially if things don't pan out, because this is kind of crunch time here. I think we have like 3 or 4 games left before the break. You gotta win. You have to win at least, 3 out of 4, 2, if you just want to play it safe. But, I think if there's one theme moving forward before we wrap up, we could kind of go up and down the lineup here and give one thing that this team, has got to improve with moving forward or just in general. And I think, because we're going to be playing a lot of big games with teams ahead of us. You cannot go to overtime with these teams. A week ago before, overtime with Montreal, overtime with Columbus. Can't do that moving forward. That is very, very important. So that's my take. Mike, Matt, what do you got for us?
Well, if it's over in the West, please go to overtime. Don't lose.
That's true. Yeah, I don't care.
Ducks. Please go to overtime. No, I really don't have any other points to wrap up. Besides, listen, tonight's game. I know we kind of like tangentially talked about it, but tonight's game felt good. Last afternoon's game against Boston did not feel good. So I don't know. Maybe like you said, Chives. Maybe they'll stop with this like win loss, and they'll start, a little bit of a streak here. And if they do, hell, we should be gearing up for going into 4 Nations and then the trade deadline and hopefully playoffs.
all right, boys. We got 2 weeks. Well, we have Boston, Pittsburgh, Columbus. Pittsburgh and Columbus are back to back, a home and away.
Of course.
Ooh.
And then from the 9th to 21st, they're off 4 Nations. We have a few representatives, and then they play Buffalo out of that. Back to back against Pittsburgh again. Steve, the one thing you mentioned was teams above you. I think 10 of the next 13 games are against teams that are not making the playoffs or are on the bubble like we are. I think those are more concerning for me. Like Buffalo, we're going in there and it's going to be
You
a
still
game.
have to beat them, though. You still have to beat them.
You have to beat them.
Buffalo's playing some good hockey right now. They kind of, turn things around a little bit. How about the Devils? I would not be surprised if Columbus takes that 3rd spot and you see the Devils jump down into the wild card.
Yeah,
I would not
the
be
only thing I'll
surprised.
say about New Jersey is they're down Markstrom and they're down Hischier right now. And trust me, I'm a hate watch any day of the week on New Jersey. But I don't know. I feel like my fear is that like those two plug in and they're just gonna like start tearing it up again.
That's true, but he's just gonna be out at least another week, and Markstrom's out for the next month. So I mean,
Yeah.
the Devils still gotta survive. They're gonna
What
get a
is
little
the
help
name
from
of
this
that
break.
Jinx Magic? They lost Monahan and they're still rolling. And I didn't even think Monahan was like stud.
I always forgot Sean Monahan was even playing in Calgary. Like even in his prime, I forgot Sean Monahan
he had
was
like a
a hockey player.
90-point season.
Yeah, he's weird.
Wow.
Very strange career.
Very
That is
strange.
weird. How about
All right,
before we
boys.
wrap up, Mike, what do you think about the Super Bowl, really quick?
Nah, we're not going to talk about it.
No, I'm not watching. I literally, Steve-O, I have renounced the NFL. I don't watch it anymore. I already have a good enough college football team in Penn State. And
Unplug his mic.
The Giants suck. And I wasn't really that big of a Giant fan anyway. And the NFL is rigged because they got in bed with betting and they just, you know what? Listen, tomorrow's the first day of the semester, so don't get me riled up before I go to bed, please.
My
Evo,
fault.
you got him going.
All right, everybody. This will wrap us up here. This episode of Puck Talk CS. Follow us along. More Mike. That's what everybody wants, and that's what everybody shall receive. Always remember, everyone, it's just the luck of the puck.